She laid the pen on the table like it was a gift. Nothing elegant, just a basic plastic ballpoint. Blue, chewed at the cap, the kind you find in conference swag bags. It rolled an inch before settling beside a manila folder marked in her handwriting. Founder Exit Package, E.G. She didn't look at me when she spoke. Sign here. It's just a formality. I didn't touch it. Her tone was the same one she used when pitching our startup to angel investors, measured, persuasive, practiced. The kind that said, "We've rehearsed this, now just agree." Only this time the pitch wasn't about raising capital. It was about removing me. Kira and I had been partners for 3 years in marriage and 2 in business. But somewhere in that crossover, the contracts blurred. Love became leverage. Promises became paperwork. The man across from me was her lawyer, not ours. Just behind him, silent but watching, was Jonah, her COO. Always close enough to back her moves, never close enough to blame. Mid-40s, silver hair, expensive but forgettable suit. He didn't say a word, just kept his hand on a leather folio and eyes on the exit door. They expected resistance, rage, maybe a desperate plea to stay. I gave them silence. My name is Evan Grant. I'm 36 years old. I live in Seattle, Washington. On paper, I was the co-founder and CTO of Neuroflux, a cognitive automation company we built together, supposedly. In reality, I was the back-end engineer, the system architect, the algorithm designer, and the one who paid the AWS bills in the early days. Now, I was E. Grant on a separation document. No job title, no co-founder credit, no legacy. The divorce paperwork wasn't even presented first. They wanted the company cleaned up before the marriage unraveled. I looked at Kira then, my wife, my co-founder. The woman who used to pull all-nighters beside me on our old couch with 2 monitors and a blanket over our laps. Now she wore a white silk blouse, blazer unbuttoned just enough to soften her silhouette. Her hair was pulled into a bun so tight it looked weaponized. The only thing personal about her was the pearl earring I bought her on our 2nd anniversary. She'd worn it today. A power move. She smiled. "Evan, I know this is a lot, but we can do this with dignity. The team respects you. They just need stability right now. The team, not our team." I noticed the subtle shift. This wasn't a conversation. It was a surrender ceremony. One she assumed I'd attend quietly. I glanced at the agreement. The asset breakdown was surgical. She kept the IP. She kept the brand. She kept 90% equity. I kept silence, except I didn't sign right away. I tapped the pen once. It clicked softly on the oak table. Kira paused. Her smile held, but her eyes flicked toward her lawyer. A flicker of worry? Number just monitoring. I tapped the pen again. Not rebellion, just presence. That folder, press strategy, founder reorg, sat inches from my hand. I could see my initials where my name used to be. Just E.G. It was a public erasure, sanitized for media. She didn't want a scandal. She wanted a clean ending. I flipped the pen in my fingers slowly. She leaned forward, elbows on the table now. "You've always been the builder, but I've been the voice. This just aligns with where the brand needs to go." Pseudo-kindness. She used it often. It wasn't cruel. It was polished. That made it worse. 3 years ago, we were soldering prototype sensors in her kitchen with hot glue and bad coffee. Now she was talking about the brand like we were strangers at a shareholders meeting. And I remembered. She once asked me who would legally own the software if we ever made it. I said, "We will." She didn't laugh. She didn't nod. She just said, "Good." Back then, I thought it was agreement. Now, I saw it for what it was: neutral consent. Preemptive silence. A flag I should have noticed. I looked down at the paper, picked up the pen, signed. No negotiation, no rebuttal, just the sound of ink and intention. Then I stood. No handshake, no comment, no second glance. But just before I reached the door, she spoke again. Softly, like a benediction. "Thank you. You're doing the right thing." I didn't stop walking, but I heard her. Every word, every syllable. And just as the glass door swung closed behind me, I caught the faintest sound, a single controlled breath. It might have been relief, or victory, or both. That was when I knew. This wasn't just about cutting me out. It was about replacing me, quietly, efficiently. And I made a vow, not out loud, just inward. I wouldn't fight her. I'd let her forget one thing, and that would be enough. The exit was clean. Too clean. No leaks, no press, no gossip beyond the curated, amicable founder separation line planted in 3 startup newsletters. Kira knew how to manage optics. I'd helped her script a dozen of them. But now I wasn't part of the edit. She moved quickly, announcing new leadership, streamlining the site, even replacing my LinkedIn photo in the About page banner with a panoramic shot of our office in Fremont. I became a memory without friction, which was fine. I didn't want friction. I wanted distance. I spent the next 2 weeks dismantling my accounts, email, internal Slack, the GitHub repositories I still had access to. I didn't warn her. I just ghosted. The only message I sent was one sentence. "Remove me from payroll." No emoji, no signature. She responded with a thumbs up. That was the last direct contact we ever had. I left the apartment we shared. Took the smallest of our 2 storage drives, left the espresso machine, left the couch. Took only what she wouldn't notice was missing. Not out of courtesy, out of calculation. The one thing she didn't understand about me was that I never acted fast, but I never acted twice. And that clause in our original partnership agreement, the one about IP ownership tied to provisional filings, she'd added it when we were broke and optimistic and thought sharing equity 50-50 was romantic. But when the company pivoted last year and rebranded as Neuroflux Labs, she forgot something critical. We never updated the IP clause. It still linked foundational rights to the original prototype name. A clunky placeholder from our first test run, NeuroNet 3X. She assumed the clause was buried. She assumed wrong. The design file for NeuroNet 3X wasn't in any company drive. It wasn't stored on Slack. It was on a portable SSD, one she gave me as a birthday gift during our first year of development. I'd labeled it Homebrew, and while she went live with our rebrand, I was at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, filing for ownership of all assets originating from NeuroNet 3X, including, but not limited to, algorithms, architectures, and system behavior models. Kira trademarked the name. I patented the substance. She had the frame. I had the skeleton. I submitted quietly, as an individual. No fanfare, no law firm, no press release. Then I waited. 3 months later, I got the approval. Patent number US 9847259B, issued under my name. No co-inventors, no licensing restrictions. I framed the certificate in cheap glass and hung it in the guest room of my new apartment, beside the window that overlooked a dry cleaner and a neon-lit faux place. That same night, I received a text from Maren Keyes, former Neuroflux senior designer, resigned 3 weeks after my exit. Her message read, "Heads up. They're pitching to Global Edge next week. Demo includes your core function. You didn't hear it from me. No emoji, no signature. She understood silence as fluency. The function she meant was mine, an adaptive neural decision tree I'd written at 3 a.m. one October after too much coffee and an argument about server latency. It wasn't hers to pitch, but she would. So I did what I do best. I waited, let the pitch go forward, let her bake it into a beta version, let the deal get close enough to smell. Then I sent one email. Subject line, patent infringement notification, Neuronet Technologies. I attached the certificate and CC'd the legal department at Global Edge. No drama, just a timestamp. 2 weeks later, I got a copy of the reply forwarded to me. Corporate lawyers declining Neuroflux's proposal due to unresolved ownership disputes regarding critical core technology. No lawsuit, just a withdrawal. Kira went silent. She knew, and I knew what came next. She'd start reverse engineering the feature. She'd try to rewrite the algorithm, replace the codebase, buy time. But in tech, time is erosion. Momentum matters more than logic. And I just stalled hers. It wasn't revenge yet. It was erosion. And I was just getting started. She went on a podcast before I said a word. 2 weeks after the pitch collapsed, she did a sit-down with a tech influencer known for softball interviews. I watched it alone, from a cafe with spotty Wi-Fi and better coffee than we ever had in the office. She smiled through the whole thing. Wore the blazer I bought her for our second investor meeting. Said all the right words. Sometimes people leave. It's part of the process. Not everyone's built for scale. That was her line about me. Not a name, not a reference, just an echo. And it worked. Comments were glowing. She's so composed. A real CEO. Clean break, pure class. She was shaping a legend. One where she rose and I drifted. But narratives are fragile, especially when they're built without source control. I didn't reply. I didn't tweet. I filed an amendment. The original patent, filed in my name, was airtight. But now that she'd used parts of it in her public-facing demos, I had grounds to file a continuation in part. That's a legal strategy. A way to expand a patent's protection around new uses or derivative ideas. I added 2 claims. A machine learning module that auto-calibrates thresholds using real-time feedback. A front-end application using said module for medical diagnostic environments. Both were showcased in her pitch deck. Both were mine now. The continuation would take months to clear, maybe a year. That was fine. I wasn't in a rush. I didn't want noise. I wanted the clock. 'Cause every month that ticked by, every new version she released, every VC call she took, they all unknowingly deepened the case. And while she polished her press tour, I was watching back-end logs from a server instance still pinging my name. You'd think she would have purged everything. She didn't. She copied my system architecture line for line, only changed the variable names. That wasn't innovation. That was perjury in waiting. But I didn't sue yet. I wanted her to be mid-air when I cut the cord. So I did something petty and surgical. I called Marin, not a friend, not an ally, just someone who knew when to be quiet. I need a copy of the old pitch deck, I said. The one we used for the fast point round. She didn't ask why. She sent it an hour later. I forwarded it to one place, the Stanford Innovation Ethics Review Board. Why? Because Kira had just been announced as keynote speaker for their AI and Ethics Summit. The board didn't take kindly to intellectual theft. 2 days before her speech, her invitation was rescinded. No press release, no explanation, just a quiet removal from the event page. I knew because I refreshed it hourly. She didn't post that week. No Instagram stories. No updates on Neuroflux. Silence has a weight. I wanted her to feel all of it. It still wasn't over. I wasn't after embarrassment. I was after erasure. She served me the final divorce papers in a neutral-toned manila folder. It arrived via courier. No message, no smiley face. Just her signature at the bottom of everything we used to argue over. Stock options, asset splits, who got to keep the espresso machine. She gave herself full ownership of Neuroflux. I didn't contest it. That confused her. She expected pushback, drama, threats. Instead, I signed everything the next morning and mailed it back. The silence must have unsettled her. I hope it did. Let her stare at her inbox, waiting for a reply that never came. I left the keys to our shared workspace on the reception desk, the ring in a drawer. My login credentials deactivated before noon. But I kept one thing, the patent filing confirmation, dated 7 months before she even registered the company. It sat in a clear plastic sleeve in my briefcase, the official copy from the USPTO. Her name wasn't on it. She never thought about that part. 'Cause she didn't understand the system. Not really. She thought exposure meant ownership. She forgot who did the back-end work, who wrote the original modules, who scheduled the 3 a.m. AWS transitions when our servers couldn't scale past 10K users. She made deals, I made systems, and systems don't forget. Neuroflux had just closed their third round of funding by then, a $28 million valuation, a CTO who didn't code, and a board stacked with friends from incubators she'd charmed with custom slides and vegan pastries. The investors never knew what she'd taken, but they would. I waited until the Delaware filing window passed. That's a corporate timestamp. Once your fiscal paperwork clears, any legal disputes carry heavier penalties for unresolved IP conflicts. I wanted the damage to be systemic. When the timing was right, I didn't file a lawsuit. I filed a request for discovery, a paper move. Quiet, polite, but deadly in context. It asked for all internal documentation related to the core algorithm used in version 1.0 through 2.2 of the Neuroflux engine. No accusation, just a request. But a request like that signals something worse, that someone knows what to ask for. Her lawyers responded with a 14-page document citing trade secrets and proprietary methods. I responded with the original repo timestamps and the provisional patent code hash. Then I waited. Waiting is its own strategy. Because when people rush to defend themselves, they make mistakes. They contradict emails. They forget which NDA covered which fork. They delete Slack messages too late. I wanted her to run. But she stayed. She fought. That made it cleaner. Her lawyer scheduled a call to discuss potential settlements. I didn't attend. My counsel did. The offer was modest. Partial royalties, one-time payout, NDA clause. I rejected it. The only thing I wanted was a full IP transfer. And her resignation as CEO. The room went quiet, my attorney told me, as if no one had considered that I might not want money. Power is not how loud you are. It's how quietly you walk into a room and change the architecture. By month's end, her tone shifted. She posted fewer updates, missed a podcast appearance, skipped a major health tech panel in Berlin. No announcement, just static. I waited another week. Then I sent the full complaint to the investors. Attached were code comparisons, patent filings, and the original email from Kira's Gmail, where she asked if we could still file later. I didn't need them to fire her. I needed them to realize she was already done. I didn't expect her to cry when the first cease and desist arrived, but I knew she would try to discredit it. Her reply came in a public Slack message posted to the company's number legal help channel. She called it a troll-level distraction and told her team to stay focused. But her eyes didn't match the bravado in the Zoom call later that day. I watched the clip 3 times. Her smile never reached her eyes. The timing was surgical. That morning, the USPTO published the updated patent status online. Ownership, Nathan Lau. Filed 17 months prior. I watched as tech blogs started noticing the overlap. One subreddit picked it up, then another. Then someone with 80,000 followers on LinkedIn shared a post titled Founders Oversight or IP Theft. It had screenshots, dates, my name. Still, I didn't say a word. I stayed off social media. I didn't return any messages. I let the system carry the weight I'd placed in motion. Kira had built her empire on perception. But perception is fragile, especially when the paperwork doesn't match the pitch. Within days, our former incubator issued a quiet retraction. No official statement. Just removed her face from the founder's wall. Their silence was louder than condemnation. Inside her company, things started to fracture. Developers began to question how much of the code was safe to use. Clients paused integrations. One paused payment entirely. Another opened an internal audit. Kira issued a company-wide memo stating they were pursuing IP clarification with full legal confidence. It read like panic, and I knew what came next, because every tech company runs on timing, and fear distorts timing. So I waited 3 more days and filed a temporary injunction, blocking Neuroflux from licensing or distributing any product using my algorithm. Suddenly, her runway collapsed. No revenue, no path to launch, no press, just questions. A week later, I got a call, not from her, but from her COO. "Look," he said, "maybe there's a deal here. Kira's willing to step down. Would you consider buying her stake?" I didn't answer. I let the silence do what years of reasoning couldn't. He cleared his throat. "She never thought it would come to this." But I had. Every minute of it. I'd prepared for it. Every delay, every pivot, every registered document and hashed line of code. I wasn't just waiting to be right. I was waiting to be undeniable. That's what the patent meant. Not revenge, not retribution. Proof. It didn't matter what she said about me in court or out of it, because the document bore one name. Mine. When they asked what terms I wanted, I kept it simple. Full ownership of the company's assets, including user data and infrastructure. A public resignation by Kira Liu, citing personal and legal developments. No contact. Ever again. They agreed. Kira never messaged me, never apologized. I heard she moved to Oregon, started a podcast about founder resilience. I didn't listen to it. Some say revenge is best served cold. I disagree. Revenge is best served on official letterhead. The day the lawsuit went public, I was in a cafe 3 blocks from her office. I didn't go there to gloat. I went because I wanted to hear the shift in tone from the people who used to name-drop her like she invented fire. And they did shift, quickly. I heard her name whispered over espresso foam and investor pitch slides. Her disbelief hardened into schadenfreude. She didn't file the patent. Rookie mistake. No, not a mistake. She thought no one would check. They were wrong. It wasn't arrogance. It was momentum. Kira lived in forward motion, forward enough to forget that the past has teeth. That lawsuit was precise. 1 count of intellectual property theft. 1 count of fraudulent misrepresentation during equity division, a preliminary injunction, and a public notification of breach consequences for any parties continuing to use the algorithm. It hit her inbox at 9:12 a.m. By 10:03, she had canceled all meetings for the day. At 11:47, her attorney filed the first reply. By noon, she posted a statement on LinkedIn. "We are working through a disagreement regarding early IP agreements. We remain committed to transparency and resolution." Comments were disabled. That afternoon, I received a call from a journalist at TechFound. She'd gotten wind of the case and asked if I had a statement. I told her the truth. No comment. The documents speak for themselves. She laughed. "That's the most lethal response I've ever heard." The article went viral by 6 p.m. Kira Liu's startup faces patent. Lawsuit from ex-husband and co-founder. People started digging. They found the old hackathon footage, where I pitched the core model solo months before we ever dated. Someone surfaced an archived GitHub repository with my commits logged under a timestamp. Someone else noticed a name missing from the company's founding team bio page. Mine. None of it was illegal. But it was ugly. By the end of the week, 2 of her board members had resigned. Her biggest client canceled their contract. And a private VC firm pulled its bridge funding. Neuroflux still existed, technically, but it was bleeding from the inside. Meanwhile, I had options. A competitor, Synexa Labs, had reached out before the lawsuit was even filed. They wanted the algorithm. They offered me licensing terms, a quiet advisory role, and enough royalties to replace every cent I'd lost. But I told them I had one condition. I would never speak to anyone from Neuroflux again. No meetings, no negotiations, no apologies. They agreed. The licensing deal went through 3 weeks later. Sealed, stamped, final. Kira posted a vague goodbye message. Sometimes endings are just beginnings in disguise. Her company folded 6 days later. I didn't attend the bankruptcy hearing. Didn't answer the final email from her lawyer asking if I'd consider a settlement discount for closure. Closure is a myth. Proof isn't. And proof, filed, notarized, time-stamped, lasts longer than love. The building was glass and steel, quiet, efficient, clinical. Synexa Labs didn't believe in flashy logos or dramatic entrance halls. That suited me. Their lobby receptionist greeted me by name, not title. That suited me even more. I signed the final licensing paperwork in a private conference room with one lawyer, one notary, and one clause I had insisted on. Any and all correspondence from the former CEO of Neuroflux, her agents, or affiliates shall be routed through legal only. The licensee shall not engage in personal communication on behalf of the licenser. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want to see her name in my inbox. I didn't want closure, a call, or a coffee. I wanted what I'd built. I wanted it protected. And now it was. Synexa's lead engineer shook my hand and called the architecture elegant. That word stayed with me. No one had called anything I made elegant before her. Kira used to call my designs technical but market blind. Then she repackaged them with cleaner fonts and called herself a visionary. I let her keep that narrative. I didn't correct the press. I didn't start a podcast. I didn't go on a TED stage. I just watched the quarterly deposits arrive. The code I wrote during winter nights in her kitchen when the heat barely worked and she wrapped herself in a thrifted blanket was now driving market predictions for one of the top 5 biotech analytics firms in the country. I passed that blanket once at a Goodwill, or maybe one just like it. I didn't buy it. The only time I saw her again was on a podcast thumbnail. Lessons from a failed founder. Her hair was shorter, her tone clipped. She spoke in abstractions. Early team misalignments, unexpected legal complexities. She never said my name. The comments didn't ask for it. But one line caught me. When you lose everything, you find out what's left of you. What was left of me? A patent, a royalty stream, and a contract that never let her near it again. I'd rebuilt quietly, strategically, without bitterness, without revenge porn, without public spectacle. She had made me invisible in her success. I made her irrelevant in mine. That was enough. I moved cities, changed numbers, built again. Some people asked if I'd ever loved her. I don't answer. Because some truths don't need to be spoken. They're written in ownership clauses, in licensing terms, in who signs the bottom line. My name. Alone. This time, not forgotten. This time, not erased.